Hi everyone, Mama Marina here. Welcome to Loving Guidance. And today's topic, Loving Guidance topic, is on self. And it's actually going to be a discussion that's a little bit uncomfortable for many of us. It's in our elder years, retirement, and funeral, right? So when we're young, we're basically set up, we go through education and we are getting set up and established to launch into our work life, our career. And that might be in the form of a job, it might be in the form of starting our own business, whatever it is, we're trying to earn a living. And as we are going along, we try to climb and advance. Maybe we're looking to make more money. Maybe we're looking to advance our job title, our skill set. We're always looking to better ourselves and get more and more, right? Until the day comes that we're older, we're around 65, 70, and we're ready to place a closure to our work life, that aspect, that phase of our life. We're ready to close that page and turn the page to a new phase of our life, retirement. And and so in retirement, many people kind of flounder. They don't know what to do with themselves. They're a little bit lost because so many years of their life have gone to working and climbing and trying to basically get more and more in their deeper and deeper in their career, that once that's closed, there's a little sense of loss and what do I do with myself now? And I've touched upon in another video the 120 years that we are supposed to live, and ages 61 through 90 is the third quarter of a human life, and that is the give back phase of our life. We are giving back to our own children, helping them raise their kids, our grandkids. We're giving back to Mother Earth. We're volunteering. We are doing other things with our time. We're still alive. We're still physically able, a lot of us. And so we're finding ways of giving back. We now have the time to write that book. We now have the time to mentor and coach and help guide. So that is that third quarter in our life. And in retirement, all of us, we it's an assumption. We assume that we're going to make it to retirement. And so because of that assumption, we're constantly, as we're working, we're constantly saving. We're putting some money in a 401k. We might put away into certain savings accounts or investments, depending on our own personal views on risk. We choose our investments based on how risk taking we are, and so or risk averse. And so that's what we do. We're saving little pockets of money to be able to live off of those funds when the time comes that we've closed that chapter of our career life and we have launched into retirement. We will live off of those funds. They will help us continue to survive. And and so that's what's going on. We're constantly saving and saving, and our employers even help us by saying, okay, we'll match. If you put 4% of your paycheck towards your own retirement account, your 401k, we'll match that and we'll give a contribution as well so that your retirement funds can grow slowly and casually. And so many of us do that. Many people put something away for their retirement, to not just live off of whatever we may get later on for Medicare and so forth, our Social Security. That's even in question whether that will be there for future generations to rely on in their elder years. So in case it's not, many people are putting towards their 401k, IRAs, whatever it is. They're trying to save a little pot of money for themselves to live off of. And it's interesting because although retirement's not a guarantee, many people don't live and they don't make it to retirement. They pass away long before they ever make it to retirement. We still do that. We still fly on that assumption that we will make it, and we're going to keep saving towards that future life, that future self that is going to need those funds. And death, however, is a guarantee. We are all, whether it's an uncomfortable truth, right? We know it, but we tend to turn our back on it. We don't really want to face the reality. And because we don't want to face that reality, we live on the assumption that we're going to keep making it into our old age, to retirement and beyond. And that uncomfortable truth is actually something we would better serve ourselves by facing that truth. We are going to pass away one day. It is a fact. It is a guarantee. It's not an if, it's a when. And because of that, it's almost better for us to be saving a pot towards our funeral expenses so that we don't pass those planning, all of that comes with that, the planning, the strategizing, the financial burden of a funeral on our kids or our spouse or our family. Like, we love them. Like, we love our family. We love our kids. We love our spouse. We love the people who we are the closest with, our parents and so forth. And we shouldn't want to hand them such a heavy burden in their time of grief. If we were to die and pass away, they're going to be in a very grief-stricken place within. And to add on top of that the financial burden of a funeral, and then on top of that the planning as well, the planning of a funeral, like, those are heavy. I remember when my mom passed away, it was sudden, and all of a sudden I found myself trying to figure out where I was going to come up with the money for her funeral, and where I had to plan it. I had to actually plan the whole thing out. She hadn't done any of that. And although she had, people kind of feel safe by having a life insurance policy. They think, oh, well, I have a life insurance policy. But what they don't realize is that from the time of death to the funeral is a short amount of time. Like, it doesn't take months to bury the person. Usually it's a few days to maybe a week or so. And so you need the money fast. And with the life insurance policies, there's a lag time. You have to submit paperwork. There's a review process. Once everything looks aligned and kosher with the death certificate and so forth, then they will issue and release those funds. So there's a lag time there, and not every funeral home or every cemetery is willing to take, oh, okay, I'll take an IOU and we can go ahead. It's a business. It really is a business. And so they are looking for their funds. If they're going to have you hold a funeral at their location, if you're going to bury your loved one in their cemetery, or if you're going to, whether it's cremation in one of their buildings, the mausoleums, you have to pay. They're not just going to sit around, okay, you pay me whenever. And most of them want their money in order to allow you to have that space. And they want their money to hold that funeral process, the wake and so forth. And so it's wiser for us, before we save for retirement, to save for our funeral, to have a bucket of money that, whether we pay for it ourselves and we set it up where the cemetery, we've already picked the cemetery that we want to be buried in, and here's the money for that, or or the funeral home. Maybe we've chosen it, we've picked out how we want to go. I want to be cremated, so here's the urn that I want to my ashes in. I want to be buried, here's the casket that I've selected for myself, and so forth. We shy away from that type of planning because it's so uncomfortable. It's so uncomfortable. We don't want to think of ourselves as ever coming to an end. We want so much to live and just absorb as much as we can from this life, that to think of it coming to a close scares us, freaks us out. It just makes us feel real awkward inside. And so we tend to not, we just put that off, put that off, put that off. And then the day comes that we do pass away, and all of that is left on our family. All of it. The planning, the responsibility, the grief, the financial burden. It's not something we should want to pass on to them. And so it's better for us to own that uncomfortable truth, own that uncomfortable planning, and perhaps even have employers, prior to starting to put money towards a 401k for you, to help you set up your funds for your funeral. And that way, that's taken care of before you're saving for retirement, because retirement's the question mark. You may make it to retirement, you may not make it to retirement. Death, it's guaranteed, whether we like it or not. It's 100% going to happen. Sometimes sooner, sometimes later. We don't know. That's the mystery piece. We don't know when our checkout date will arrive, but it's important for us to be prepared and not give such a heavy load to our loved ones. I think it's in our best interest. It's definitely in their best interest for us to not do that to them. And so a part of loving ourselves and loving them is planning that finale. And we can do that by either setting aside funding, and maybe employers can also contribute to the guarantee, to help people, just like they would the 401k matching. They would contribute people who opted to say, okay, first I want to pay for my funeral, so I'm going to contribute out of each paycheck or whatever. I'm going to contribute a certain portion, and then your employer matches that. And now that piece of your your funeral, your finale is complete, and it's safeguarded, and it's there so that you don't leave that financial burden to them. And then you guys can step into saving the 401ks and the investments and so forth, anything thereafter. But at least that guaranteed checkout is taken care of on a financial level. And now we can proceed with best case scenario. We do make it to retirement. We need funds to live off of. We can save. We can pull from our 401k. We can pull from our investments. We can pull from our savings accounts, and our employer helped us with that as well. So that is Mom's loving guidance to you today, and maybe even to businesses, to think about other ways that you can help your employees plan for their entire life, not just up to retirement. They may make it there, they may not, but for that finale, because it does come with a price tag. It's not free to pass away. Just like having a baby isn't usually free. We have to pay the hospital bill. We have to pay for the medical exams, make sure our baby's good, all of that. Having a new life enter this earth does come with its own expenses, and closing a life, and burying somebody or cremating them comes with its own bucket of expenditures. And so we need to be prepared for that phase as well. We're better prepared for having a baby in our youth, because we're working. Most of us are working during the years that we discover we're having a baby, and so it makes it a little easier. But the finale part's a little tougher, especially for those who have already made it to retirement and are beyond that. And then that checkout, they're not working. They've lived their full life. They've come to the closure of their work life. And here they are, let's say 74 years old, 76 years old, and they're getting closer and closer to the closure of their life. And so they don't have that income, that consistent income of that they would if they were working. And so it's harder. It's much harder for somebody who's older to try to save and pay for and plan their finale, their funeral. So I just feel that, and we can't get out of that. I mean, it's just what it is. And to leave it to our family does not seem like the kindest thing that we could do. I mean, we could own ourselves wholeheartedly. After we become an adult, it's us. We own our life. And I think part of that does include the finale piece, where you can save your family from, you can't save them from the grief that's going to come just because they love you and they miss you, but you can save them that extra, the planning and the financial burden. And why wouldn't you want to do that? Why would any of us want to give a financial burden in the throes of their grief, in the throes of their sorrow and pain? Here, you have to fork over money for this funeral and fork over money to this, the cemetery and the funeral home and it's just a lot. It's something that we can take care of in our lifetime, and we shouldn't be afraid to. There's no reason to be afraid of owning your entire life, including the last phases of it. What's going to happen in the last phases. Many people do. They'll save money for when they are going to be in a nursing home or an assisted living and so forth. They're saving for, that's retirement, right? We're saving for those elder years, but others put extra for those other possible living arrangements down the line when they can no longer, should they not be able to care for themselves any longer, and their children, they don't want to be a burden on their children. And so they say, okay, instead of me living with you, I'm going to go to a nursing home, I'll go to an assisted living facility, and they plan that out. And for some reason, we are better and more willing to live in our youth and have this hopeless hope. I don't even know, not even, how do I say this? This anticipation and this hope and this positive outlook that everything's going to go smoothly and wonderfully as we roll along in our life, but it doesn't always play out that way. And so I'm not trying to scare anyone. I'm not trying to be gloomy. That's not the point here. The point is that you can own your entire existence, and that includes the closing chapter, that final chapter, what that looks like, where you want to be buried, where you want to be, put in a mausoleum, what kind of urn do you want to be scattered in the ocean. You can set those things up instead of ignoring them, turning your back and acting like it's not there. You can own that piece of your life story. And so none of us escapes the end. We all get there eventually. So own it. Don't be scared of it. Don't be, hesitant to actually face that is there. And I think when we do accept that portion of the fact that our life story does come to a final close, this lifetime is temporary, we live differently. We mind our lifetime, the time that we are alive, better. We don't waste it. We know that it's limited, and it's something that we need to value and truly every moment needs to be well invested, I guess, not just financially, but just in terms of ourselves. And so it helps us live a more purposeful and a more mindful life, how we spend our lifetime. What do we want to do with our existence, our time that we have, whatever amount, whether it's shorter or longer, it doesn't matter. How do we want to experience this life? And what do we want to input in terms of experiences, and what do we want to give of ourselves out into the world as our legacy before that checkout date shows up? So that is Mom's loving guidance for you today. Plan your finale. Don't run away from it. Don't shy away from it and just act like, it's not coming. It's for others to plan and fund and all of that. And just stash away for this retirement that you may or may not make it to. So plan for the finale. That's 100% guaranteed. And everything else can go into that retirement fund in case you actually do make it there. You're trying to safeguard your older years. You really are, on a financial level, for both. You're not going to be working, so it's going to be hard to fund a funeral for yourself if you're not working once you've retired. So all of that, keep all of that in mind. Just really think about that, ponder that. Think about how you can help your family, what little pot of money you can set aside for them too. Maybe you still leave the planning to them, but at least the financial burden won't be on them. And so that is Mom's loving guidance to you today. A little bit of a somber topic, but definitely one that we should all rise and face as adults. As people who fully embrace and accept the realities of our life and our lifetime. So love you all. Don't get gloomy. It's okay. You're still alive. Nothing bad is going to happen. You're okay. Just be aware of what the future truly does hold. All right. I love you, my loves. Until next time.